Okay. All right, so my name's Tony Tangalos, and I came to talk tonight about prepping. And so we handed out, did everybody get a copy of this little event program we had at PrepperFest Expo? Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to whip through a presentation here pretty quick, and we'll leave at least 15 minutes for question and answer. If I get to 7:45 and I haven't wrapped up, just Bernie, raise your hand, and I'll cut it off, and we'll get to the question and answer session. So my father got me into prepping. He was born in 1922, and in 1929, when the Great Depression hit, his parents both lost their jobs, and he went to bed hungry every night and moved every month because they couldn't afford to keep a roof over his head or food on the table. That was his childhood, and that made an indelible impression on him. So for him, that was his own little personal crisis. And he warned me when I was growing up about a debt bubble that would cripple us far worse than the Great Depression that he lived through. And many experts believe we're on the brink of that debt bubble right now. You know, we had a dot-com bubble in 2001, and stocks went down horrifically. We had a housing bubble in 2005, 6, and 7 that caused a pretty bad economic impact, especially here in Arizona. The debt bubble is going to make those problems pale in comparison. And so that's one of the many things that people are concerned about, which is why they're prepping. Now, I want to be clear. Our tagline, prepping, it's not for doomsday; it's for everyday. And you know, there's a lot of programs like Doomsday Preppers on Nat Geo and others that really kind of focus on the doomsday side of things. But really, prepping is all about everyday, not just doomsday. And so we want to focus on that. We're going to get to a bunch of the subjects in the program here. I host an informal meetup group the first Friday of every month at Deer Valley Airport. The Deer Valley Tea Party used to be there every Friday, and they moved on January 1st to the 2nd and 4th Fridays. So I have a little informal meetup at Deer Valley on the first Friday of every month, which is coming up this Friday. Of course, I'm going to be actually in Tulsa at a preparedness show, so one of my associates, Jeff Smith of Desert Ops Training, is going to be running that meeting. So I want to congratulate everybody who decided to come out and listen to what we're going to talk about tonight. Can I see a show of hands of how many people consider themselves preppers in the sense that they store some food and things like that and kind of prepare for a rainy day? Show of hands. Okay, good. About a third of the room. And then a show of hands, how many went to PrepperFest Expo 2 weeks ago? 2. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that more of you weren't there. Usually, most of the tea parties I've been speaking at, 80 to 90% of the people have gone. So what we're going to talk about tonight may arouse some feelings of fear, anger, and denial. That's not our goal, but we're going to present some things that are occurring in our world that are a little disturbing, and it's reasons to prep. So our mission is committed to waking people up to the major changes that many people view as coming. And this is usually an hour presentation. I'm going to kind of whip through it to get through in 45 minutes. We want to offer you resources to fearlessly prepare for an increasingly uncertain future. Be prepared, not scared. So we already talked about that. Let's see here. For the 2 people, did you enjoy? Can you pass the mic back to the ladies that went to the expo and let us know if you enjoyed it and what about the expo you enjoyed? Please.
That'll teach you.
Yeah, I went specifically to see a couple of things, which was the fish.
The aquaponics? Okay.
Yeah, and my grandson and I talked about that quite a bit. And I wanted to see about the foods in the jar.
Chef test meals in a jar, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I also was really interested in the water purification.
Okay.
And there were lots of other things that I enjoyed too.
Did you find it worthwhile to go? Did you like it?
Mm-hmm.
Did you take any of the classes? We had 88 classes that were there at the expo.
We didn't. We didn't really stay that long.
Okay.
But we did look around at all the exhibits, and it was very interesting.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. So, yeah, so we had 188 vendors, 88 classes at PrepperFest Expo. We'll get to that a little bit more. For all the preppers in the room that raised your hands, How many have at least some members of your family and friends that think you're a little paranoid and wacky for being a prepper? All right. So this program is for you. And so what we have in here, we're going to cover a lot of the information here. About half this program is educational information for preppers to take home to their family and friends to help enlighten them. It's all about awareness. You know, it's all about awareness. So we're going to go through the program a little bit. Common sense is telling you that our world is facing an increasingly uncertain future. We have a litany of game-changing events. We've got the debt bubble, the Middle East meltdown, Israeli-Iranian conflict that always seems to be brewing and could turn into things. And you know, the choice is to either identify and see these threats or to embrace them or resist them, prepare or don't prepare. The change is going to happen. It's not a matter of whether change is going to happen. It's a matter of whether you're going to be prepared and be fearless or be caught off guard, like my dad's parents were when the Great Depression hit. Here's some of my favorite quotes. These are in the book on, I think they're on, let's see, page 5. For whatever anguish of spirit may cost, I want to know the whole truth, to know the worst of it, and to provide for it. That's kind of like the prepper mantra. Don't be the ostrich with your head in the sand. Take a look around and be ready for things and provide for them. Clicker's going a little slow here. Come on, buddy. There we go. So there's several potentially life-altering events that are poised to occur at any time. And our goal is to get people to snap out of the normalcy bias and prepare for the next black swan event with a life assurance plan. Now these are all defined on, in the program, and we're going to actually get through those in the presentation tonight. They are on page 4 in the program. And we're going to talk about each one of those in detail tonight. What the normalcy bias is. First thing is a black swan theory. So what black swan theory is a very unusual event that rarely happens. It's high impact, hard to predict, rare, and has a disproportionate role in changing our world. So an example of a black swan event is Hurricane Katrina, 9/11, the tsunami, the 1859 EMP, which stands for electromagnetic pulse. These are things that nobody really saw coming. Of course, the hurricane, they had some idea that was coming. Most of these other things were not anticipated, and they had a huge impact on our lives. And here's some of the potential future black swan events. I'm not going to read them all. They're all up there on the screen to look at. But these are various things that could, in a moment, very quickly change things for us, and are reasons why it's a good idea to be prepared. You look at the dollar bubble. This is called the government debt hockey stick. And it's hard to see some of the dates there. This is 1940, and then this gets up to about 2010. And our government debt, which most of you being Tea Partiers are probably well familiar with, is just going, like that. And that's unsustainable. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that debt has to come to roost. This is the debt my dad started warning me about in the 1960s, and it was over here back then. I don't know how he was a prophet to know that this debt would end up going like that, but that's the big thing that he warned me about. The Treasury Department can't get anybody to buy our bonds anymore. So the terms quantitative easing and monetizing the debt is basically, we can't sell our bonds to China and other foreign countries anymore. And we still need the money because we spend $3 for every $2 we take in. So the third dollar is basically, okay, nobody's buying our bonds. Well, I got a solution. Let's just go in this room here and crank up the printing press, and we'll take the money over to the bond sales room. We'll just buy our own bonds. And we'll give it a pretty fancy name so nobody figures out it's a Ponzi scheme. We'll call it monetizing the debt, quantitative easing. So that's what the government's been basically doing with quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, and endless, is they're literally cranking up a printing press, just like the German government did in the Weimar Republic to pay off the reparations from the League of Nations from World War I. And we all know how that happened. The lady ended up taking a wheelbarrow full of money to the store, and when she came out, the money was there, and somebody took the wheelbarrow because it was the only thing left that was worth of any value. Well, that's where our dollar is headed, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you look at federal debt and gold, the blue line is the federal deficit, and the red line is gold, and this is a couple of years ago, so it's right about $1,400. Gold is keeping pace with the debt. What's happening is the dollar is basically becoming worthless. It's becoming scat tissue. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and you want to prepare for it. And if you don't believe that this is a serious problem, why would states be actually minting their own coins? There's several states now that have actually minted their own coins, one of which is Utah. This thing actually made it all the way through the state legislature here in Arizona, and Brewer vetoed it. which was very disappointing because we could have had Arizona minting their own coins. The states are preparing for the dollar collapse. Utah's all set. When the dollar collapses, Utah will be able to continue to pay its civil servants with its own gold and silver currency. Now, it's illegal for any state. The Constitution prohibits states from printing money, but they can make gold and silver as a legal tender for payment of debts, as long as the gold and silver is the actual value. It's not fiat currency, it's actual real currency. So this has happened. Utah's done it. There's several other states doing it. Arizona had the chance to do it, and Brewer flagged it, unfortunately. Walmart, of course, is reporting expecting inflation. We've got, just kind of whip through here. Here's one of my favorite quotes here. That's the Prime Minister of Japan making a toast, and Obama's talking to Hillary. Did he propose a toast to the dollar, or did he say the dollar is toast? So, you got to laugh at, most comedy is rooted in pain and misery, and we're headed for it, so we're getting some light of it. But, I'm not the only one talking about this. Howard Ruff, Peter Schiff, who wrote the book, Howard Ruff wrote the biggest book called How to Prosper During Coming Bad Years. Peter Schiff wrote a book called, gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a really popular book. Porter Stansberry, David Wiedemer, Donald Trump, politicians, Ron Paul, his son Rand Paul, they're all talking about inflation as being a very serious problem. And we have to ask ourselves, is this crazy talk, as Glenn Beck often asks, or is this a real concern? Then we have other issues. And I'm going to whip through these things so we can get to the meat of the program, but Israel did bomb Iraq's Osiris nuclear reactor facility in 1981, and there's concern that there's potential for Israel to do a preemptive strike in Iran. That thing has kind of settled down in the last year or so, but you never know when that thing could become a problem. World history is replete with examples of major wars that began. When the Archduke of Ferdinand got assassinated, that started World War I. And when Hitler invaded Poland with his fake invasions, his fake claim that they were attacking him, that started World War II. And you don't want to wait for the mainstream media to warn you about these things ahead of time. The liberal media typically report things after they happen. They are trained and skilled in herding the public like sheeple. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions about these risks. Then we have natural black swan events: earthquakes, tsunamis, solar storms, and EMPs. And again, I'm going to whip through these because I normally do this presentation in about an hour, and I'm going to zip through these. So, of course, we all know what happened in Fukushima, and now I'm hearing reports that salmon are being radioactive salmon. The radioactive debris is washing up on the western seaboard of the United States. There was a Chilean volcano, which was huge. It was a volcano, and there's also a Chilean earthquake back in 2011 that was 8.8. You may not have heard about a lot of this stuff. Here's some of the pictures of this. Mainstream media didn't even cover some of this stuff. Then, of course, there was the 2012 East Coast power outage, where people had their own little problems. It would have been nice if they had some preps there, some gasoline and generators and stuff. Then there's solar flares, which have 3 classes: C, M, and X class. S class are the worst. This is all straight off of NASA.gov. And here's an example of an X28 solar flare popping off the sun. This is basically highly charged solar radiation coming off the sun. And when it gets directed at the Earth, it can cause a real problem called the electromagnetic pulse. It's also called the coronal mass ejection. And we had one of these in 1859 that destroyed all known technology at the time, which was basically telegraphs. It literally burned up the telegraph wires. And there have been several EMPs that have come off the sun. They just haven't been pointed at the Earth. And had they been pointed at the Earth, it would basically take out all known technology in the Earth. We would go right to the TV show like Revolution or some of these other shows where you just, all technology is toast. And again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. This did happen in 1859. It was called the Carrington effect. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go home and Google Carrington effect and learn about that. Also, you could have an electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear explosion. When they were doing above-ground testing after World War II in the Pacific Islands, those explosions were detonated like Bikini Atoll. We're taking out traffic lights and technology in Honolulu, over 1,000 miles away. The electromagnetic pulse from the nuclear explosion was taking out technology. So if some foreign rogue government detonated a nuclear explosion over the central part of the United States, it's projected that the EMP would wipe out virtually every bit of technology. We're talking no cell phones, no computers, your cars would stop running. Basically everything. We would go back to the Stone Age really quickly with one well-placed nuclear explosion over our country. There's a variety of potential sources. It would take out everything. Satellites, cell phones, auto, computers, everything would be completely wiped out. And again, this happened from the sun in 1859. It was called the Carrington effect. It has happened. It also happened in 1989 in Quebec. A small EMP hit the Quebec area, toasted all the power transformers in Quebec for many months. They were taken out of commission. One way to protect against this is building a Faraday cage. One of the instructors we had at Prepperfest Expo was Rob Hannes, who taught people how to build a Faraday cage, which is basically a metal container. You put technology inside the metal container. The metal container will shield that technology from the effects of an EMP. And then after an EMP, you can take these items out and they'll work. And you may think, well, what good's my cell phone if the networks are down? Well, what you could have is things like a computer hard drive with some content that's valuable that you could then run on your computer. You could have a ham radio, which will typically work by bouncing signals off the ionosphere. There's various technology that will be very valuable to have in the event of an EMP. Here's some pictures of some disaster scenarios in Joplin, Missouri, when that tornado went through there and just leveled the town. I mean, I drove through Joplin on the way out from Chicago. I was moving some family out right after this happened, and it looked every bit like this. It was right from the freeway. It was crazy what happened there. You know, I like a lot of what Glenn Beck says. He's not on TV anymore. He's on his own podcast. But he talks about a lot of the things that are brewing and how, you know, we're headed for a perfect storm with the debt and all these things. Even some of the liberal people. I mean, here's James Carroll talking about how, you know, we could be seeing some civil unrest, and he thinks it's eminently possible. So even the liberals are talking about the chance for civil unrest. Any one of these combination events could substantially change our way of life and could seriously disrupt local commerce. And this is where, you know, we've become so dependent on grocery stores and fast food. And, you know, back before World War II, most people lived on farms. And the idea of a prepper to me is a farmer. So it's someone who takes responsibility for their life, has the ability to do some of their own repair work, maybe has a little garden, has some chickens, has some livestock, has some food production in their own backyard. That's to me what a prepper is. And it's interesting, on page 14, I talk about the 10 stages of self-reliance awareness, and at the bottom of the page I quote Lisa Bedford from the book Survival Man. And she talks about how back before World War II, most people lived on farms, and they were self-reliant. Moms and grandmothers could fix their own clothes, they would have their own root cellar, they would can their own food, preserve their own food, and they would live that self-reliant prepper lifestyle. And it was after World War II, when the advent of the A&P grocery stores, McDonald's, and all the fast food and air conditioning, people migrated en masse off of farms into cities, and they became dependent on grocery stores for their food and fast food and air conditioning. And they got away from that self-reliant lifestyle that was the default standard from the times of Adam and Eve all the way up until World War II. So it's really normal to be a prepper, to be self-reliant, to have some personal responsibility for your survival. And it's only in the last 2 generations that we've gone from this self-reliant prepper mentality to this cushy, let's count on the dollar always being stable and the grocery stores always being full, and I don't need to prepare for anything because I live in a secure world mentality that most people have today. So we need to wake up and pay attention to the emerging developments which have the potential to disrupt our lifestyle. And we suggest that it makes sense to take practical steps to prepare for the disruptions that are likely to occur. So how to respond to threats? Well, there's a couple of ways. You can basically ignore them and panic when the threat emerges, kind of the way that people were in the times of Noah when he was building the ark. They were laughing at him, and then they tried to get in the ark when the rain started falling. You can view them that they will not, that they're real, that they're not real and will not harm us, which is the normalcy bias. Everything's going to be fine. The dollar's always going to be stable. The grocery stores will always have food. Or assess the threats as realistic and take rational steps to prepare. The same people who choose not to prepare will flock to the grocery stores and will be battling with dwindling food supplies with the others who fail to plan. And that's the vast majority of the public. Very, very few people are preppers. It's estimated less than 5% of people are basically preppers. Now, we talked about the black swan events that could cause you to really wish you were a prepper if you're not. I want to talk about why most people aren't preppers, and here's the big definition. And this is listed on page, it's on the definitions page, I think it's page 5, in the page 4 in the thing. This is the most important takeaways to understand what the normalcy bias is. And our definition is straight off of Wikipedia. I have Porter Stansberry's here. It's basically people underestimate the possibility of disaster and believe that since something has never happened, it never will. We're all guilty of this to a certain degree. It's just human nature. And, it makes people unable to prepare for disaster or deal with it. And once it has occurred, they just have a really hard time preparing and dealing with it. It results in unnecessary deaths. Think about the Jewish populations in World War II. Barton Biggs reported in Wealth, War, and Wisdom that very few Jews left Germany when Hitler was saber-rattling that it wasn't going to end well for them. And they believed that the Nazis' anti-Semitism was short-lived and his bark was worse than his bite. And they really reacted sluggishly to the rise of Hitler. Churchill was screaming about Hitler being a bad guy, and everybody thought he was the crazy one, that Churchill was the crazy one, not Hitler. And then, this is one of the most tragic examples of devastating effect of the normalcy bias the world has ever seen. It was pretty clear back then that, and I wasn't there obviously, but it was pretty clear amongst historians that Hitler was going to be a problem, and people didn't assess the threat and realistically take rational steps to prepare. So that's what we're asking you to do today with this presentation, is to wake up and observe changes, whether it's weather-related, political, or financial, and adopt a preparedness lifestyle. Glenn Beck had a great episode on this. He says, does it seem like everything's fine and living in the Ward and June Cleaver, Ozzie and Harriet days? Or are you looking around and seeing what's happened with the dot-com collapse, the housing collapse, the dollar debt bubble, and the global political instability? Does it make sense to be prepared? So that's the question you have to ask yourself. I'm just giving you some options of what we suggest you should think about. And so what should you do? Okay, so we're going to get to we're about 20 more minutes and we'll be done with the presentation here. You can't control disasters. You can control whether you're prepared for them. That's one of the big takeaways here. You can control whether or not you're prepared for them. So don't worry about the disasters. Just worry about maybe thinking about being prepared. Don't worry about it. Just be prepared. So I'm going to give you some quick, some things here. Of course, I have my radio show every Sunday on KFNX. It's a Prepper Patch radio show. We don't talk politics. We don't talk about the causes of problems. We just give you solutions on aquaponics and food storage and animal husbandry and raising rabbits or chickens and growing your own groceries. We give a takeaway. Today we actually had a radio show. For the next 5 weeks, I'm going to be on Shane Krauser's show from 2 to 3 on Tuesdays because KFNX preempted my Sunday shows with basketball and baseball programs. And the information about our radio shows on page 9 of the program. All my past shows are on preparednessradio.com. That's in your program on page 9. Also, so once people wake up, we have Prepper Fest Expo, which 2 of you went to last weekend, 2 weekends ago. It's at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. Our next one is coming up September 19th through the 21st, 2014, at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. And again, we'll have probably over 200 vendors there, almost 100 classes on all sorts of self-reliant stuff. Aquaponics, animal husbandry, water purification, food storage, you name it. Anything you want to learn about how to get prepared, ham radio, it'll all be there. So the third key prepper definition, besides normalcy bias and black swan theory, is life assurance plan. So I imagine, raise your hand if you don't have at least one of these. Life insurance, car insurance, homeowner's insurance, or health insurance. Is there anybody in the room that doesn't have one of those? Okay. So what a life assurance plan is assuring you're going to stay alive. Now when you part with your money for health, auto, disability, life, or homeowner's insurance, what do you get for that? You actually don't get anything tangible. You just get a promise that if you have a loss, you're going to be made whole again. If your car's in an accident, they'll fix it. If your body needs some health care, you'll get some insurance money to cover that. But you don't actually get anything tangible. What a life assurance plan is converting your fiat currency, which is basically becoming scat tissue, into tangible goods and assets that you can use. It's buying food. It's buying, now this is actually on page 2, this is from an old show flyer, I didn't update this slide. So it's buying things like food storage, water purification, ham radio, solar power, fuel alcohol distillation, buying tangible things that you can actually use, you can sell, you can eat. That's what a life assurance plan is. So having enough food, water, and other essential resources in stock at your home to endure a sustained period when outside resources become unavailable. And this has happened in various places across the country where the hurricanes have hit. It's happening where the power outages have hit, earthquakes. I know in Arizona we don't have a lot of those concerns. We just have our god-awful heat that hits every summer. But if there's a national debt problem, if there's other national problems, that will impact our ability for our grocery stores to get replenished. So most people protect themselves with this insurance. Why not protect your ability to eat and survive no matter what black swan event may happen with a life assurance plan? So that's what we suggest you consider. Then there's other parts of preparation. There's spiritual prep, information prep, physical prep, and financial prep. I'm going to whip through this pretty quickly here, and then we'll take some questions and answers. What's interesting, to me, the most important prep you can do is spiritual prep. That is the most, if there's one thing you do, is be spiritually prepped. And it's actually listed as the first priority in each of these well-known authors. James Wesley Rawls, who wrote the book How to Survive the End of the World as We Know It, which is also called Teotwaki. And Dr. Prepper wrote the book Family Preparedness Handbook. Many, many people have said spiritual prep is the most important thing. There's two authors, Lawrence Gonzalez and Ben Sherwood wrote books about survival, and they both said spiritual prep is the most important thing. So I try not to get too preachy here, but I believe, for me, my faith is my spiritual prep. I believe in God, and I believe in handing things over to higher power, things that are beyond my control, and trusting God to give me the resources and to use the resources He's given me to prepare. This website is actually listed on the inside back of the book on page 57. It's right there. My Fearless Future has many resources for helping people to prepare. It's a website I built about 4 or 5 years ago. You know, when you go through loss, if there's a big black swan event, you're lost. You know, here's the 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And when disaster hits, many people remain in denial. And it's good to be prepared for these emotions to hit, both within yourself and within others that are screaming at you in a panic over they're experiencing these emotions, and be prepared to deal with that emotional turbulence. We actually had 2 classes on emotional prepping at the Prepperfest Expo. And one of the key things in one of the books is called the Stockdale Paradox. I'm going to skip this so we don't run out of time. It's a neat thing. If you Google Stockdale Paradox, you can learn about that. I'm going to skip through some of these book recommendations here. So one of the things, here's a starting point to get you going. This is all on my website, My Fearless Future. Buy a minimum 30-day supply of food. You cannot live without food. First thing to disappear in a crisis is food. So you can buy all of this from Costco online or Sam's Club online for under $300. It's all listed on the website, My Fearless Future. And this will give you enough wheat. You need a wheat grinder. I should have that on the list here. Some dried milk, rice, beans, and honey. You can make bread and honey. This stuff will largely last. Wheat will last for 20 years. Honey lasts forever. Salt basically lasts forever. The beans and rice last a couple of years if you keep them in dry, dark environments, in temperature-controlled environments. All that stuff's on My Fearless Future. And you can go look at that. For under $300, you can basically have a food storage solution that lasts a long time, that will cost you less than $300. Here's a water prep solution. Some 55-gallon drums, a bung wrench. That's actually what a bung hole is on the top of a 55-gallon drum. I'm sure you've heard they use shut your bung hole. So you can buy the bung wrench. All this stuff is for under $200. I have resources where you can buy that, again, on My Fearless Future. Water purification. A 1-pound bag of dry granulated pool chlorine will disinfect up to 10,000 gallons of water. It's stable. You don't want to store bleach because liquid bleach goes bad over time. Dry granulated pool chlorine is a great way to disinfect water. And one pound bag costs you $4. That'll basically allow you to treat a whole bunch of water for a long, long time. So I'm going to skip through these so we can get to the end of the presentation so we can take your questions. Again, all that's on My Fearless Future. Then there's another term called a bug-out bag. We actually had a guy teach a bug-out bag course at Prepperfest. This is a go bag. It's basically, if you have to leave your home, this has some food and some items that you want to have, a ham radio, some tools, some water, and some other essential items, a saw, some fire starting materials, some clothing, so that if you just had to leave your home at a moment's notice, you would have the ability to have things that you would want with you without having to assemble them. They're all pre-assembled in a bug-out bag. And again, a list of items for a bug-out bag is posted under the Downloads tab on My Fearless Future. And then here's another thing that comes up is people talk about whether they're going to bug in or bug out if there's social unrest from a grid-down situation. It's all about having options. Most preppers are actually planning on bugging out, which means getting out of a high population center like Phoenix and going up north. We have a lot of Mormons in this state, and there's a tremendous number of northern Arizona villages up in Heber, Snowflake, Overguard, Cholo, Pine Top, Lakeside, where a lot of people are planning. They have a summer home up there, but it's also a bug-out location that they can run to get out of a high population center. So you have less people competing for more resources, whereas in Phoenix here you're going to have 4 million people competing for a limited number of resources. Here's a popular song lyric, should I stay or should I go? If I go, there will be trouble. If I stay, it will be double. It's from a song by The Clash. And that kind of defines my personal perception. I own property up north and up by Heber, and I plan on being out of here before things get tough. And one of the litmus tests of that, of identifying when things get tough, that Glenn Beck has offered, is the collapse of the euro. If the euro goes down, it's widely expected the dollar will collapse within 30 to 60 days after that. And so that's a good litmus test. If you see the euro go down and you want to bug out, that's a good time to plan on bugging out. We can't rub our crystal ball and know the future, but it's widely perceived that euro will fall before the dollar will, and that would be a good time to bug out. Just going to skip through a bunch of more of these slides. Okay, now there's another term that I have. On pages 14 through 24, I wrote some original material called the 10 Stages of Preparedness Awareness. And I'd really like for you to look at that when you get home in this week or so. Take a look at that. Stage 1 I call the ostrich, and I list about half the populations in that. You know, preppers are paranoid extremist morons. I have no time to investigate or interest in the facts they present. Instead, let's talk about something meaningful. Should we order pizza or wings for dinner? Yeah. And are we going to watch The Apprentice or Who's Got Talent? Or, you know, Who's Got Talent on TV? And these people take particular delight in mocking and ridiculing preppers, and are a big reason why prepping has been so slow to develop critical mass. Well, when those people in a grid-down event are now looking in their cupboard and there's no food, and the grocery stores are empty, and they have no access to food, a lot of them are going to become what's called a pirate prepper. So I coined that term pirate prepper, and it's basically people that decide that in a grid-down situation, in a skills-hit-the-fan scenario, they're just going to take from somebody else. Okay, I don't have anything. Well, I need something. I got to feed my family. So they believe that, you know, the 10 Commandments and the Golden Rule get suspended in a grid-down situation. They can just steal and kill. And I'll tell you what, if you don't think those people exist, let me tell you they do. I've run into them all over the place. I've had people, I'm a blabbermouth about prepping, as you probably have seen already. And I go to restaurants, I talk to people. I've had people, oh, you're one of them there preppers. Yeah, I know I should be a prepper too. I ain't got nothing. I got one thing. I got me a gun. And when the skills hit the fan, I'm going to look for one of them big, fat prepper mobiles rolling down the road, and I'm going to shoot out its engine block, and I'm going to take everything they got. And if they give me a hard time, I'm going to shoot them too. That's my plan. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are thinking that's their A-game plan. And for everybody that's in the ostrich stage, which is stage 1, and they're not preppers, they're going to quickly become that pirate prepper when the wife of the family unit's screaming at the husband, shaking him, going, the kids are hungry, let's do something. And the husband's like, okay, well, the grocery stores are empty, I'm going to have to go steal something from someone. So you want to be prepared for pirate preppers, and many people will become that. Otherwise civilized people will quickly become that in a matter of days when things get tough. It's really sad. We actually had quite a few courses at the Expo on the morals of survival and the morals of prepping, and how the 10 Commandments and Golden Rule don't get suspended in a grid-down scenario. And not only should you not be like the pirate prepper, but plan to have enough stored up so you can actually help other people in a grid-down situation. So then we're going to just whip through financial prep so I can get done in about 10 more minutes here. Gold and silver is probably the most important thing for financial prep, and I want to be very clear on this. Most people don't have gold and silver. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because you probably want to be private about it. I will tell you that I have quite a bit of gold and silver. I have almost nothing in currency or any kind of paper denominated thing, and I have physical possession of the gold and silver in my own grubby little hands. Here's the thing about gold and silver. Most of your investment advisors and investment brokers will not talk to you about gold and silver. And the big reason for that is they don't make a commission on it. So they don't have any vested personal self-interest in educating you about gold and silver. And you've probably heard this if you watch Glenn Beck. I mean, Gordon Liddy, and I mean virtually every other ad on his program is about buy silver, buy gold, buy silver, buy gold. Here's the thing. You do want to be in gold and silver. You want at least 10% of your wealth in gold and silver. I suggest more, but at least 10%. But here's the trick. Be careful of what you buy. Don't buy numismatics. And if you walk into virtually every gold and silver store in town, the very first thing they're going to do is show you these rare coins. And ooh, what a great investment opportunity it is. Well, it's a great investment opportunity, all right, for the guy trying to sell you the numismatic coins. Because the second you walk out the door, those coins are going to drop 30 to 40% in value. You want to buy bullion. You want to buy bars or rounds or eagles, maple leafs, or Krugerrands in the gold, and you want to buy what's called junk silver in the silver, which is junk silver is pre-1965 quarters, dimes, and halves, which are 90% silver. These things are sold purely on the value of the gold and silver in them. There's no premium you're paying for the collectible value of it, which is why they perceive to become worthless in a grid-down situation. And I will tell you, from my personal experience, virtually every store you walk into, they're going to try and push you into numismatics. The second you walk out, you've lost 30 to 40% of your income. So that's a big takeaway right there. It will temporarily replace currency. And it's interesting, you know, back in the 60s, I'm 53, so I remember going to McDonald's when I was probably 5 years old, 1965. 64, 65, you could get a burgers, fries, and Coke for about 25, 30 cents. You can actually still get burgers, fries, and Coke at McDonald's for 25 cents if you have a quarter from 1964. That is silver. The silver value of that quarter is worth about $6.50, and that's about what a burgers, fries, and Coke goes for at McDonald's. So the value of the silver and the McDonald's hamburger have actually stayed perfectly even. It's the value of the dollar that's gone to crap. And so that's kind of an interesting little parallel there. And beware of buying positions in a Perth Mint in Australia. You want to take physical possession of them because they're not going to do you any good if they're not in your personal possession. We also recommend getting out of credit card debt, auto debt. This is all basic 101 financial prep. Reduce your debt. Self-defense is a personal decision for each person. I hope to never use a gun. I want to maintain the choice of whether I want to be able to use one if self-defense is necessary. Without a reasonable means for defense, your family safety is at risk. So that's just a personal decision. We're not going to spend too much time on that. I personally like stun guns because they will allow you to separate yourself from someone without killing them. Especially there's some neat stun guns that look like cell phones or flashlights that people would have no idea. And the second they're threat, you can just tase them, kind of like stun them, and a couple million volts, and they'll be lying on the ground while you get away. And then you don't have to make that decision of killing somebody. So these are kind of the things. Prepare spiritually, build a library of books, store some food and water, get a bug-out bag, plan a rural haven. Now, we haven't gotten to that yet. That's actually coming up later in the thing. Gold and silver, get out of debt, protect your family. You'll be far more prepared for challenges than 98% of the population. I moved the ranches and down in the slideshow. So here's our expo again, coming up in September. And I'm just going to whip through this. Here's some of the things that we have at the expo. We had a huge constitutional rights pavilion with Shane Krauser was there, Sheriff Richard Mack. We had Stuart Rose of Oath Keepers who Skyped in because his wife just had a baby. We had a whole bunch of people on gold and silver investing, colloidal silver, essential oils, aquaponics, you name it, animal husbandry. We had a petting zoo there, first aid training, all sorts of stuff that was there. Basically anything to do with self-reliance. We had an educational pavilion, ham radio pavilion. Ham radio, by the way, is a really good communications tool. People have gotten away from ham because of cell phones. But in a grid-down scenario, a ham radio worked. That's what got people through Katrina and 9/11 and some of the other things when all the communications was crashed, was the ham saved the day. And you can actually, you used to have to take the Morse code to get a ham radio. Now you can just take a 4 or 5 hour study on the test questions and get your ham license for 10 years. And you can buy a ham for under $60 now. a portable handheld ham. It's about the size of a cell phone, and you can talk all over the place with that thing. We also had a lot of stuff on livestock, permaculture, neighborhood pavilion. A lot of it, there's about 150 of the vendors are in the program that you have, so you can kind of go through the book and look through some of the vendors we have there. And I didn't bring any flyers with me, so I'll just skip that slide. But you can get flyers from our website and save the $2. One of the third things we do is called Prepper Games. So if you wake up and you buy your preps at the expo, you want to get involved with the games. This is coming up in November at, it's in the program on page 10, is the Prepper Games. So there's some information about that. That's basically bug out training, tactical training, learning how to build fires and develop a security perimeter, operate a ham radio, and do things that would involve, if you're in a bugged out situation, having some skill sets. And then the last thing we recommend is getting off the grid into a prepper ranch. And we're working on building affordable community locations up north in the fall of this year for prepper ranches for people. We put one together last summer. About 15 people bought in with me in a parcel of land that has a well, and we all got it. It was pretty affordable, under $5,000, and we have access to a well and a couple acres apiece to have a little bug out location up there. So we do encourage you to at least think about having to plan to leave an urban environment and eventually social arrest if you become sustained and your safety's at risk. And if you can't afford one, maybe you have a friend you can go to, or a neighbor, a family member, somebody you know that you can get out of the valley. Some people are planning on bugging in. It's a personal decision. I do recommend bugging out ahead of a social unrest. I do not recommend attempting to bug out after things have gotten bad. It could be very dangerous to do that. So we're working on prepper ranches to have an affordable thing. Putting together a group. If anybody's interested in helping fund that or being involved in that, I can tell you I have hundreds of people that want to buy it, and I'm basically getting my investor group completed to be able to acquire some of the land and put the program together for people to buy that. And so if you're interested in that, see me after the meeting. And our thing is, be prepared, not scared. If you're prepared, you're not worried about these things. Be fearlessly prepared through self-reliance. And I think that's just about the last show. Yeah, there's just a couple of books. I'm going to skip through these books here. That's one of the biggest books right there. Dr. Prepper was actually at the expo last weekend. This book is the biggest selling book. It's sold over 800,000 copies now. And he was there giving them away for half price and signing and autographing them. He sold like 300 books. It's the best book on self-reliance there is. He's a good friend of mine. He's actually coming out with his next edition. He's going to have, he's going to put a chapter in there. The 10 stages of self-reliance awareness that I wrote in this program is going to be in the next copy of the Family Preparedness Handbook. It's a real honor for Dr. Prepper to have invited me to be in that book with him. So don't listen to anything I said. Do your own research. Become self-reliant. And accept your sacred duty. This is important. Accept your sacred duty to responsibly prepare your family physically, mentally, and spiritually for an increasingly uncertain future. That's a quote straight out of Dr. Prepper's book. He first published that book 40 years ago this month, 1974. Very interesting. And you're here for a reason. Consider how much your family and friends need you. The very people that think you're a paranoid extremist will need your help, just as those who mock Noah later wanted to get on board his ark. So it is now 7:45. We hit it. I'll be happy to entertain any questions. Yes, sir, in the back.
I have the microphone.
Oh. Can you turn the microphone on? It is on. Okay.
What do you think of Costco's prepared meals that they sell?
They have quite a few selections. There's far more online than there is in the stores, and each store is different. Some stores have lots of items, some stores have few items. I think they're great values. Great values. Costco's a really good option for getting started. They have wheat. You can buy a 50-pound, 5-gallon bucket of wheat for like $13. You can make bread till the cows come home. It'll last 20 years. I mean,
if you have electricity.
No, you can use a solar oven to cook it. You can use a camel-powered oven. We have both of those available at Prepper Fest. You do need a wheat grinder to turn it into flour. Although my daughter loves to eat wheat, she just chews on it. Yes, sir.
I would suggest that if you're gonna buy food like this, use cash.
Use cash?
And the reason is, they passed a law about 4 years ago, that if you have over 2 weeks of food, they can invade your house and take it.
The government can come and take it. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of executive orders. We didn't cover a lot of stuff, but basically from LBJ's time on, they've made all these executive orders that are just stacked up waiting to go, that basically they can take everything you have away except your right to breathe air. I mean, they can take your planes, your cars, your homes, your food, your guns, and they're literally poised. The second there's a grid-down scenario and there's social unrest, they're going to impose martial law, and the plan is that they're going to impose all these executive orders and try to take everything away. So the best bet is to be up north, hide your stuff, buy it cash, and if you don't think this is going to happen, I'd rather be wrong than you think I'm wrong and not prepare and find out I wasn't wrong.
Tony, you suggested acquiring 10% of assets in the form of bullion.
Yes.
How do you get change for bullion? What if you want to buy something and you don't have the exact amount of bullion?
Junk silver is the answer. A quarter of junk silver is about $6. A dime of junk silver is about $2.50. So, you know, for one dime of junk silver, that's worth about $2.50. You can buy something for $2.50. And if it's a big ticket item, you bring out a gold coin that's worth about $1,300, $1,330 right now. So there's a whole range of stuff. The majority of my assets are in junk silver, and it's just real easy to use the junk silver. And the neat thing about junk silver is this. Nobody's really ever been known to successfully counterfeit coins. Everybody counterfeits paper. So the neat thing about a junk silver coin is it's immediately recognizable for what it is, that it's real, that it's before 1964, it's 90% silver. Everybody knows that pays attention to this stuff, that it's 90% silver, and it's worth roughly, you know, at today's price is about $6. So it's just, it's going to be a very, very useful form of currency for people. Yes?
Does the prepper community talk about FEMA camps or FEMA at all?
Yeah, I didn't want to get really into the dark side of things, but yes, you know, there's this. I'll just say, you guys are Tea Partiers, so most of you, half of you are awake because you've raised your hands as preppers. There's a belief that there's this New World Order. Everybody's heard about the New World Order, right? That George Bush spoke about. Well, the plan of the New World Order believes they're basically global elites, and it's not a Democratic or Republican thing. This is way above Democrats and Republicans. And the belief is that they think the world's overpopulated. Well, you know what? I happen to agree with them. I think the world's overpopulated too. The difference is I don't think it's my job to exterminate 90% of the population to fix the situation. And they actually think it is. And they're actually, you know, there are plans prepared. I mean, you've probably heard about the protocols of the Wise Men of Zion and all this stuff. Alex Jones, David Icke, where the plan is to really reduce the population to what they believe is a sustainable number of about 500 million people, which would require about a 90% reduction in that population. And, you know, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying that's what a lot of people believe is the plan.
Tell us, where do we store this gold and silver?
Well, I'll give you some creative solutions. Some people store it in their attics. Some people, if it's gold coins, you don't need a lot of space. There's like this electrical outlet here. There's a place you can go that buy like little spy headquarters. You can buy a fake electrical outlet that has a big box inside it, and you can put you put $10,000, $20,000 worth of gold inside there, and no thief's going to walk around your house taking all your electrical outlets out to see which one has the stuff stored in it. You can buy safes. In our book is an ad for Mountain Vaults. This is my recommended place for you to store your stuff. And the reason why is because you don't want to store it in a safety deposit box that's bank controlled. Back in the 30s, FDR declared a bank holiday, and they went ahead and closed all the banks down and took everybody's gold out of there, and it became illegal to own gold. If you don't believe me, look it up on the internet, it's true. And they gave everybody a lot less money than the gold ended up becoming worth right after they declared the bank holiday. They could do that again. It's why they believe they will do that again. On page 49 is a full-page ad from Mountain Vault. I've looked the owner in the face. He actually says in here, confidentiality, extensive privacy not available with bank safe deposit box rentals. And he has looked me in the eye and said, if they even tried to go in and take his property, he would know about it before the day they did it, and he would give everybody a chance to go in. But he said the feds aren't going to be able to go in. He's a private company. He's not part of a bank. He's not part of the global elite. And he would tell them to basically go shove it if they tried to come in and take all his stuff. And it's a neat vault. It's right there on Cave Creek Road, about Greenway. And it's literally built in the side of a mountain. I mean, it's very secure.
Well, what about metal detectors? Would they come in and find it?
Well, I believe so. Yes. So you want to bury it pretty deep if you want it. There's different levels of where you want to go. Some people bury it in ammo canisters in their backyard, a couple feet deep. Yes.
Is that vault structured like a pyramid, where it's got chambers?
I don't know that. I've been inside it. You walk in and it's basically like this, and the mountain goes up behind it. So there's 10, 20 feet of mountain between where you are and there above you. Yes, sir.
You mentioned colloidal silver.
Yes.
What's that?
Colloidal silver is a healthcare treatment. It's basically, silver has been widely believed to be like the silver bullet for all sorts of healthcare ills. It's widely known back in the old Wild West days, people would throw a silver coin in water, and that would kill any pathogens in that water indefinitely. So what colloidal silver is, it's a healthcare treatment. I actually have taken it, and I've had profound health benefits. It's where you take silver and you electrically charge the silver so it literally ionizes into microfine particles, and it gets suspended in the water, and you drink it. So you're actually drinking suspended silver particles in a solution. The silver goes into your blood, your cells, and into your body, and it actually kills everything in contact. It's been known to kill virtually everything. And I mean virtually everything. The people that proposed, and it's interesting how the healthcare community, you won't hear about this in the mainstream healthcare community, but it's widely believed if people started drinking colloidal silver, 90% of healthcare issues would just disappear.
Don't you have to have special equipment to make it though?
No, it's just you need a couple 9-volt batteries and a little piece of silver and some electrodes. You put it in distilled water and you can make it yourself. You can buy it also. There's a couple of our vendors had colloidal silver at the expo.
Oh, Sprouts has it.
Yeah, try it. If you've got any kind of healthcare issue, feel free to try it. I personally can endorse it. It's been fantastic. You endorse? So raise a show of hands. Anybody uses colloidal silver? Okay, it works, right?
You bet.
Okay, this is the type of stuff we have at the expo that you learn from. Yes.
Hi, I'm Julie, and I don't know if anybody else is like this, but we have this jar, and we have change, and we throw it in there, and so it's nickels, dimes, and quarters.
Okay.
So how do you know if any of that's the good stuff or
1964 or before.
that you can only go by the year?
That's right. And in halves, 65 to 69, I think, was 50% silver. But 1964 and before, quarters, dimes, and halves were all 90% silver. That's like the best currency to have.
Where can you get it?
Pennies are not worth money. You can buy it at virtually any coin store you go to. Any neighborhood coin store, they have junk silver there. You call ahead, make sure they have it. It goes pretty fast. And you'll pay about face value of it. You'll pay about what the face value is of the silver. If you want to buy large amounts, CMI Gold and Silver sells it by the bag. A bag is $1,000 face, which right now I think is about $13,000, $14,000. So if you want to go deep into it, look up CMI Gold and Silver. I think they're in here. Let me see if they're in the program. They may have registered after. I don't have them in the book. So write down CMI Gold and Silver. They're not in the book. They registered after we printed the program. It's a great place to buy. They sell it at face value. Yes, sir.
Thank you for a good presentation. Some of it you excluded for time purposes. Can we see this again or get a copy somehow?
I think they videotaped this. So did you have it on the website? Did you say?
It'll be on our website.
Okay. And the book has 150 some vendors in here, so you can flip through the book and there's a little summary description of each vendor in there. We had some of the speakers we had there were like Joel Skousen. Joel Skousen's room was packed. He had standing room only. We had David Bloom, who wrote the book Alcohol Can Be a Gas. He's the nation's foremost authority on fuel alcohol distillation. We had Dr. Prepper there, Marjorie Wildcraft. We had an all-star cast of nationally known prepping celebrities at the show. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time.